Max Blumenthal is a best-selling author and senior editor of the Gray Zone Project. His recent piece, published by The Real News, is called "The U.S. is Arming and Assisting Neo-Nazis in Ukraine While Congress Debates Prohibition." Welcome, Max. Let's start with what you have reported for The Real News about Ukraine. You call this a truly scandalous episode of close to covert U.S. support for neo-Nazism in Ukraine. Explain what's going on there.
Yeah, the Azov Battalion is essentially a militia that's grown out of the Patriot of Ukraine party, which was a neo-Nazi white nationalist party founded by a street demagogue named Andrei Beletsky, who has pledged to restore the honor of the white race, in his words, has through his national or social national party in the Ukrainian parliament advanced laws forbidding race mixing, this kind of thing. And the Azov Battalion became active after the civil war began in the Donbass region in eastern Ukraine, when pro-Russian separatists sought to secede, partly because of the the neo-Nazi incipiency in Kiev. They didn't want any part of it. They speak Russian. Their language is not going to be recognized by the new government. And so the Azov Battalion was ultimately incorporated into the country's National Guard and military through the Ministry of Interior, through Arsen Avakov, who's been basically a supporter of its agenda all along. He also at one point installed another figure from Patriot of Ukraine, Dmitry Yarosh, as the police commissioner in Kiev. This is another neo-Nazi figure. And, you know, all along we saw these denials, especially in 2014 during the Maidan so-called Revolution of Dignity, which was actually a right-wing nationalist coup against a democratically elected government. We heard liberal voices like Timothy Snyder or neoconservative operatives like Jamie Kirchick deny the very existence of neo-Nazism in the ranks of the Maidan. Now I think it's very clear that Azov is on the march, and I'll get to that in a minute. What I did here at The Real News was compile a series of reports, including from Azov's own website, that demonstrate that U.S. military trainers have visited Azov in the field to train and exchange logistical information. They appeared in uniform with Azov Battalion members who are wearing the Wolf's Angel patch, which is a Nazi SS symbol, a runic neo-Nazi symbol on their arm. This is just a scandalous spectacle. Not only that, contracts have been revealed showing that the Texas-based Airtronic Arms Company has produced PSRL-1 grenade launchers that were actually authorized under the watch of the State Department and delivered directly into the hands of the Azov Battalion. So the U.S. has armed Azov. Azov actually scrubbed photographs from its website that showed them in the field with those very weapons. One reason this is significant is because the Azov Battalion functions in a lot of ways like ISIS has in Syria and Iraq, where it receives foreign fighters. It's received sniper training from a Swedish military veteran, and it received a French farmhand named Georges Monteau. At some point in 2016, Monteau returned from Azov camps in the east with a trove of weapons that was enormous. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of pounds of C4 explosives, automatic weapons, and grenade launchers, and he was on his way to Western Europe to attack a soccer festival and carry out attacks on synagogues and mosques. This would have been one of the most significant terror attacks in recent European history. So it's a scandalous episode. And now we've learned in the last week that the Azov Battalion has formed a national corps, which is both a political party and a street militia that is deployed into the streets of Kiev. A neo-Nazi militia is deployed into Kiev. They're not fighting pro-Russian separatists. They're there to, quote unquote, restore law and order. And this is part of the wider agenda of the far-right nationalist and neo-Nazi movement in Ukraine. It's called the Reconquista. It's been spelled out by Andrei Beletsky, their chief ideologue. And the idea is to essentially recapture the so-called white countries of Europe, Ukraine being the bastion of the white reconquest of Europe. And so you have hundreds of armed neo-Nazi militia members in Kiev right now. They've actually interrupted a city council meeting. They took over a city council meeting in central Ukraine, and it's beginning to look like a putsch. President Poroshenko is weaker than ever. He's even been denounced by the Kiev Post, which is basically an arm of the pro-NATO Atlantic Council. He's, I don't know why, getting attacked by all of the pro-Maidan Western commentators. And meanwhile, this neo-Nazi putsch is happening completely beneath the radar of US media. And it's absolutely terrifying, not only to the Jewish community of Ukraine, but to average Ukrainians.
You know, Max, in the piece, you quote anti-Nazi activist Ephraim Zurov, who says that Ukraine has more statues for killers of Jews than any other country. I found that chilling. Now, there have been efforts in the U.S. Congress to bar the delivery of weapons to neo-Nazis in Ukraine, but they've been defeated. Is that right?
Well, they haven't been defeated. They've been continually pulled from congressional defense authorization bills, and there is one prohibition that's on the that's been proposed. The House Appropriations Bill contains the language forbidding weapons to Azov, but in the meantime, while Congress dithered, the Trump administration authorized a shipment of tandem anti-tank missiles, extremely advanced anti-tank missiles from Raytheon. The U.S.'s envoy to Ukraine, Kurt Volker, who is connected to Raytheon through various means, which I explained in a separate article at TruthDig, is in favor of this arms shipment, and it's inevitable that it will reach Azov because, as I said, Azov has been absorbed into the national Ukrainian military and are considered some of the best fighters. Another point is that, if you look at the 600 or so Azov National Corps members who deployed to Kiev to restore national order, just the cost of their coats alone would cost over $1.7 million, according to several Ukrainian media sources. So who's paying the bills for them? How are they able to maintain advanced weaponry, such high-level uniforms? All of these questions suggest that they're operating hand in glove with the Ukrainian government, specifically the Interior Ministry of Arsen Avakov.